Hi, my third grade friends. Mrs. Real here with another installment of Samantha Spinner and the Super Secret Plans. So last video I made, we just kind of introduced the book and read the first chapter. So in the book, we know that Samantha Spinner has a sister named Buffy, a brother named Nipper. They live with their mom and dad, and they have an uncle who lived above their garage in their little house area. And he was a little unusual. He wore plaid pajama pants and orange flip-flops at all times. And then he disappeared and left them a letter that said, I'm a secret agent guy. I'm really, 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 really rich. And so he left Buffy, the sister, who loved to shop and do those kinds of things, a check for $2,400,000,000. Sam's brother Nipper got the New York Yankees and the deed to the stadium. So he owns the stadium and the team. And Sam got a rusty red umbrella with a tag hanging off its worn handle that says, "Watch out for rain." So I am going to share the screen. We will start with chapter 2. You can read along if you'd like, or just kick back and relax and listen. I'm going to set a timer so I don't read the day away. Although if you guys know me, I could do that. So chapter 2. Oh, at the end of chapter 1, Samantha was pretty sure of one thing already. It wasn't fair. It really wasn't fair. In her heart, she knew that if anyone ever wrote a book about her life, the title of chapter 2 would be, "It Wasn't Fair." There's her red umbrella with the tag. And guess what? Chapter 2. It wasn't fair. Samantha's brother's real name was Jeremy Bernard Spinner, but everybody called him Nipper. That was because when he was little, he used to bite people all the time. Never hard enough to break the skin, but it sure hurt. Now he was 8, and he didn't do that very much anymore. Actually, it's been 3 years, 7 months, and 12 days since he'd bitten anyone. Everyone still called him Nipper. With his very own baseball stadium and professional ball club, Nipper was looking forward to the best summer ever. He might even be getting an awesome magical ring on his finger, a World Series ring. Meanwhile, Samantha's older sister Buffy was already having the time of her life. As soon as she deposited the check for $2,400,000,000 in her bank account, she rode her bike to her favorite boutique in Seattle and bought the fanciest, most expensive handbag she could find. She went back to the store an hour later in a cab and bought an even larger handbag to carry the first one in. Then she returned in a stretch limo and bought the store. A great, grand shopping spree had begun. Buffy headed to the mall early Saturday afternoon and came back home 5 hours later with a convoy of tractor trailers. Each truck was filled with scarves and sunglasses. "When is this going to stop?" Nipper shouted to Samantha. "I can't hear you," she replied, looking down at the umbrella. Big rigs rolled past them for the rest of the day, dumping crates of accessories in the backyard. Sunday was all about sweaters and belts. A fresh column of trucks rumbled down the Spinner's narrow side drive, and crews added the cargo to the rising pile of crates, which was now almost as tall as the Spinner house itself. There was no school that Monday because it was Parent-Teacher Day, so Buffy woke up and started shopping all over again. For decades to come, that day would be remembered as Shoe Day in malls and department stores throughout the Pacific Northwest. Wearing her most expensive scarf and designer sunglasses, Buffy went to every shop within 25 miles of Seattle and systematically purchased every pump, sneaker, and boot in sizes 9.5 and 10. Meanwhile, a squad of foot proxies, teenagers with the same size and shaped foot as Buffy's, visited stores in all the major cities of Oregon, Idaho, and Washington state, buying footwear on her behalf. By Tuesday morning, Buffy's wardrobe was as fabulous as it was ever going to be. So she shifted gears. She announced that her destiny was to be a movie star and that she had set her sights on Hollywood. Whoops, sorry guys. Different timer. Have to remember to do things when I'm home by myself. Mr. and Mrs. Spinner said that was fine, that Buffy wanted to become an actress, but that she absolutely could not leave school. Buffy listened to her parents and agreed she wouldn't leave school. She paid for a team of engineers to raise Lake Union High School, including its football field, parking lot, and flagpole, onto a caravan of 24 massive flatbed trucks, and she took the school with her. Students, teachers, books, band instruments, cafeteria food, and all began the journey south. They left behind an empty dirt field, a row of lockers that were permanently rusted shut, and a girl named Melly McPepper, who Buffy refused to bring because she wore white after Labor Day. No one heard from Buffy for 2 weeks. Then one afternoon, while Samantha was moping in the living room, Nipper walked in waving an envelope. "Mom just gave me this letter to share with you," he said. The envelope was addressed in ornate calligraphy drawn with gold ink. It was from Scarlet Hydrangea in Beverly Hills, California. There was at least $97 in stamps on it. "Who the heck is Scarlet Hydrangea?" asked Nipper. Samantha opened the letter and read it out loud. "Dearest Sammy and Little Nipper, I'm the star of my own big budget movie, and it's going to be a blockbuster. No one seems impressed yet, but once I learn my lines, I know that the world will appreciate my brilliance. My 550-room mansion is delightful. Uncle Paul was right. I finally have space for all of my accessories. I even have space for both of you when you come to visit. There are 2 empty stalls in the stable behind my waterfall. I'm planning to keep a pair of rainbow unicorns there, but no one has been able to find any for me to buy yet. Come soon and you are welcome to them. The stalls, not the unicorns. Right back, but please don't rattle on about your boring lives. Kisses, Scarlet Hydrangea. P.S. That's my new stage name." "Okay, got it," said Nipper. Samantha dropped the letter on the floor. "I'm just like poor Nellie McPepper," she moaned, and flopped face down on the couch. "I have nothing to do and nowhere to go." Nipper was about to point out that she could go to California and stay in Buffy's stable when Dennis trotted in. Samantha looked up from where she lay to see that the dog had a shiny new collar. A gold band sparkled with colorful gems ranging in size from tiny rubies to a huge blue diamond about the size of a walnut. Uncle Paul had even left a fabulous present for the dog. "Even you got something amazing," said the pug. Dennis stepped forward and sniffed Samantha's hand, but she didn't move. He was getting petted a lot less often lately. Since Uncle Paul had disappeared, power moping now took the place of petting and just about everything else for Samantha. Come to think of it, other than going to school, doing homework, and snooping for signs of Uncle Paul, laying around feeling blue had become her main activity. For weeks, Samantha kept hoping that there was something more to the rusty old umbrella. She inspected it several times a day. Maybe there was a key to a secret bank vault hidden inside the handle. There wasn't. She peeked through a tiny hole in the cloth near the center. Nope, there was nothing to see. The whole rickety thing seemed like it was about to fall apart. She fiddled with it over and over again, and finally gave up. Uncle Paul had taught Samantha about archaeology and how to ride a bike. Samantha had helped him solve puzzles and found interesting stickers and buttons for his collections. On the day before he disappeared, she gave him a set of scratch and sniff stickers that smelled like fruits. "You know, Samantha, people can remember smells 250 times better than sights or sounds," he told her. "Smells have the power to unlock important memories." He scratched at one of the stickers. "Very important," he said. If memories were so important, then why did Uncle Paul forget about her? Why would he just go missing without telling her? And how could he give her silly big sister all that money and her brother a Major League Baseball team and give her nothing more than a piece of junk and a note about the weather? The fact remained, it wasn't fair. Samantha looked at Nipper. He was still standing there waiting for her to say, "Watch out for the rain." "Watch out for the rain," she said gloomily, and rested her head back down on a cushion. Samantha had begun to mutter the phrase to everyone several times every day. With that out of the way, Nipper turned to leave. His thoughts were on his franchise. The Spinners lived in Seattle, but his parents had promised that the whole family could take a trip to see his Yankees in New York City as soon as school ended. It might even help Samantha focus a little bit less on her moping. "Cheer up," said Nipper as he crossed the living room. "You can sit with me in the owner's box. Sooner or later, there are going to be some rain delays, and that old umbrella will come in handy." He left her, walked through the kitchen, and grabbed his folder full of contracts from the counter. Then he headed outside to see if any friends, neighbors, utility workers, or passerbys were around to hear more about his baseball team. Chapter 3, No Backsies. The Spinners had two of the worst next-door neighbors on planet Earth. On the south side of their house was Morgan Bogdan Lupel, a boy who never ever said anything that wasn't ridiculous or impossible. When Samantha went looking for clues about Uncle Paul, she asked Morgan Bogan if he had seen him. "I saw your missing uncle just a few minutes ago," he told her confidently. "He was wearing big rubber boots and said he was on his way to take cello lessons. He had a pet raccoon on his shoulder." Their other neighbor was Missy Snodgrass. She lived next door to the Spinners on the north side, closer to the park. She was a little girl with curly blonde hair, freckles, and a cute button nose. She was double, triple, super evil. When Nipper walked out of the house and hopped the bushes that afternoon with a folder full of papers to show Missy that he owned the New York Yankees, he should have known he was in for trouble. "My uncle disappeared," he told Missy as she stared at him through the screen door at the side of their house. "I know all about that," she said. "Now I'm the new owner of the Yankee Stadium," Nipper said, excited to share the news with someone who seemed to care. He held up a fancy certificate with a big gold seal in it. "This is the official deed to the ballpark." He flashed it for her to see. Missy pushed open the door and slid out onto the landing a few feet from Nipper. "Impressive," she said, looking directly into his eyes without blinking. She did not sound very impressed. "I've got contracts for all the players, too," he added cheerfully. Missy rubbed her chin with her right hand. Then she extended that hand toward Nipper, palm up. "Fascinating. You should let me see some of those contracts." Nipper opened his folder and handed her several pages stapled together. "Here," he said, beaming with pride. Missy inspected the pages carefully. He watched her lips move silently as she read the fine print. Finally, she looked up from the contract and smiled at him. There was a huge gap where she was missing a tooth. "He's one of the finest pitchers in the entire American League," she told him. "Uniquely talented. Will you let me see one of the outfielders?" Nipper thumbed through the folder and held up another contract. Missy took the papers from him and read them more quickly. "Amazing," she concluded. "Now can I see the document for the stadium?" At last, Nipper had found someone interested in his Yankees. For weeks, he had tried to engage Samantha in conversations about baseballs, stadiums, leagues, the infield fly rule, hot dogs, or even big fuzzy mascots. Nothing he said could distract her from the moping. She just wanted to whine about the umbrella. Of course, Nipper was the first to admit that he understood nothing about big sisters, or any 11-year-old girl for that matter. Soon, he had handed the complete set of documents to his neighbor. "Well, I think we both know the secret to a winning sports team," she said. Suddenly, she started speaking in a very soft whisper. "It's the players that you trade. Don't you agree?" "What was the last part?" asked Nipper. "I said trade. Don't you agree?" she said clearly. "Sure," he answered cheerfully. "Terrific," Missy announced. She reached into her back pocket and took out a large magnifying glass. It had a shiny metal band around the lens and a blue handle. Nipper thought she was going to use it to examine the papers again. Instead, she gave it to him. Uh-oh, I think something bad just happened. What do you think? "What's this?" he asked, taking it from her. "That's what some people refer to as a hand lens," she explained. "Of course, you can still call it a magnifying glass. I don't mind at all. It's yours now, and no backsies." "Backsies?" asked Nipper, confused. He turned the hand lens over. The blue plastic handle was flimsy. It had a crack at the bottom. "I don't understand." Missy reached into the front pocket of her yellow polka dot blouse and took out several pages torn from a book. She shuffled through them quickly and handed one to Nipper. It came from a dictionary. He read it out loud. "No backsies. Noun phrase. No backsies. A command used to prevent a return action or consequence. This term originates from the game of tag, stopping players from immediately tagging the player who tagged them. More broadly, it prevents someone from going back on an agreement or a trade. I didn't want an agreement or a trade, said Nipper, beginning to feel very nervous, and I don't like this magnifying glass. Didn't you hear me call it a hand lens? Missy corrected him. Well, you will definitely learn to love it. Bye. She tucked all the papers under one arm and turned to open the screen door. Wait, shouted Nipper, reaching out to grab her sleeve. Missy spun around violently and shook a fist 2 inches from his nose. Never touch me again or I'll smash you like a bug. Endless misery and woe will fall upon you like the rain. Nipper could swear he saw her eyes flash red with fury. Then she smiled and looked down at her watch. Whoopsie, look at the time, she chirped happily and stepped back into her house, slamming the door behind her. And with that, she was gone. And so were his New York Yankees. Nipper was going to miss opening day. Nipper stood on Missy's porch for a few minutes. Then he slunk down the stairs and backed away from the snug grass driveway. A magical new ring wasn't in his future, and he didn't feel like jumping over the bushes anymore. Soon he was inside his house, stomping up the stairs toward the second floor. Sam, he called, I lost my baseball team. Chapter 4 is called Friday Morning. All the people were gone. Dennis sat under the table. When the man with the orange shoes first showed up, a waffle fell on the floor. There was syrup and there was powdered sugar. It could happen again. Something went hiss. Dennis looked around. He didn't see anything. He didn't smell anything. Someday, he would get another waffle. Chapter 5, Friday afternoon. For weeks, Samantha divided her moping evenly between flopping on the living room sofa, sulking at the kitchen table during meals, and muttering to herself as she paced under the basketball net outside Uncle Paul's apartment. Every afternoon, she took Dennis for a walk around the neighborhood. She spent half of each walk looking for clues about Uncle Paul and why he had disappeared, and the other half wondering why he'd done it without saying goodbye. When the weather was bad, however, she stayed indoors to power mope. There, she'd lie on the floor and write depressing entries in her journal. It was springtime in Seattle, so it rained for a few hours almost every day. The little black notebook already had 16 sad entries. On the 35th afternoon, since Uncle Nell had gone missing, Samantha chose her bedroom for the gloom session. She invited her brother to join her. Ever since he'd lost his Yankees, Nipper was more than willing to mope along with her. Samantha was on the floor, lying on her back with her feet on the bed. She flipped through her journal to one of the recent entries and read out loud. There's a little bit of Nellie McPepper in all of us. One moment, the future looks great. The next moment, all our hopes and dreams are jacked up into a massive flatbed truck rolling south. Life's a bumpy ride, McPeppered with potholes that filled us with despair into the air. It's so unfair. And there's no umbrella big enough to shield us from the daily drizzle of our dreary lives. We have nothing to do and nowhere to go. Nipper half ignored her. He was looking at an old baseball card Uncle Paul had given him. Honus Wagner, Nipper said, using the magnifying glass to examine the stats on the back. A guy who never got to play with the New York Yankees, just like me. Wait, said Samantha, let me take a closer look at that card. Nipper had already put it away and was examining the pencils, paper clips, and coins on Samantha's desk. Sam, did you ever see an old penny up close? There's a man sitting between the pillars of the building. That's Abraham Lincoln, said Samantha. The building is the Lincoln Memorial. Peering through the glass, he moved towards her. Let me peek inside your nose. Cut it out, Samantha said, and pushed him away. Nipper tripped and fell. He landed flat on his back, still holding the magnifier in front of his face. He started to study the underside of the desk. Hey, I remember this piece of gum. I stuck it here last year. Do you think it has any flavor left? You are exceptionally gross, said Samantha, and stop touching my things. Technically, that gum is one of my things, said Nipper. He rolled onto his side and started examining objects on the floor. There's a neat pattern on the bottom of your sandals. He lifted a flap on the old umbrella. This has a cool pattern inside, too. He squinted at the inside of the umbrella for a few seconds. Then he stopped. He sat up quickly. Come here, Sam. I want you to see something. Nipper, I do not want to see a shoe or a bug or inside your ear. No, really. He handed her the magnifying glass. Use this. He pushed the button on the worn wooden handle and the umbrella popped open. Hey, close it, Samantha shouted. The last thing I need is more bad luck. Just look. Samantha took the magnifying glass and lay down on her back under the open umbrella with her brother. She squinted to focus on what she was seeing, and to her surprise, Nipper was right. There was a pattern on the inside of the umbrella. There were lines and shapes everywhere. But it was more than that. She took a closer look at things and saw that there were tiny pictures, hundreds of them, no, thousands. She could see buildings, streets, tunnels, towers, ladders, stairs, trees, bridges, and fountains. The umbrella was a map. She recognized some of the drawings. There was the Eiffel Tower. There was the White House. There was a castle, an elephant, an ear of corn. But there were many more things that weren't familiar at all. Samantha was pretty sure that one big shape was China and another was Australia. She could make out the Taj Mahal and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and everything was connected. There were lines and arrows running from one picture to another. It looked like there was a tunnel under the Washington Monument. A zigzaggy line ran from the Statue of Liberty to a big sunken boat in the North Atlantic Ocean. The umbrella was more than a map. It was some kind of top secret blueprint of the whole world. Nipper, Samantha whispered excitedly, I think Uncle Phil gave me super secret plans. So the super secret plans are hidden on the inside of her old umbrella. So like at the beginning of the book, there was this information about the Eiffel Tower and the rivets, and that one rivet that wasn't a rivet at all, but a button. So now we have information about the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is a 45-carat blue diamond about the size of a walnut. A French merchant obtained it from a mine in India and first put it on display in the 1600s. Since then, it has become one of the most treasured and storied gems in the world. Blue diamonds are extremely rare. Only about 1 in 100,000 diamonds is brightly colored, and blue is one of the rarest colors. A huge blue diamond is incredibly rare. Since 1958, the Hope Diamond has been on display at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. It is said to be insured for a value of, counting my zeros, $250 million. The huge diamond on display at the Smithsonian, surrounded by armed guards and a very elaborate security system, is actually a replica. It is a blue piece of glass that has a street value of 75 cents. The real gem was stolen from the museum several years ago. A tiny radio transmitter is attached to the true Hope Diamond. It emits a continuous signal broadcasting the gem's whereabouts. Anyone with a receiver tuned to the correct frequency can pinpoint the location of the precious gem once they get within a few miles. That's our fun fact of the day, and we need to stop right there. So my friends, Samantha thought she had a worthless umbrella. She's now found that it's the super secret plans. Nipper had the deed to the New York Stadium, to the Yankee Stadium and the New York Yankees, and got tricked by the little evil girl next door. And then Buffy, the sister who loves to shop, picked up her school, took it to Hollywood, wants to be a movie star, and has a 550-room mansion to put all her stuff in, and has invited her brother and sister to come anytime they want because she has 2 stalls in her stable behind the waterfall, only until she gets unicorns, and then there's no room for them to stay in her 550-room mansion. So I will do some more reading in a couple of days and send you some more of Samantha Spinner and the super secret plans. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.